What if everything you believe about your body is only half the truth? Imagine yourself as a biologist, sitting in a quiet laboratory, surrounded by petri dishes and microscopes that open doors to hidden worlds. This is exactly what Dr. Bruce Lipton experienced. His entire life revolved around a central idea he learned at university, that DNA is the absolute master of the body, and that your genes determine your destiny. But his journey into the world of cells was about to meet a surprise that would turn this belief upside down. In those days, he would spend long hours staring at living cells under the microscope. At first, it seemed routine, cells dividing, multiplying, living, and dying. But over time, he began to notice something strange. These very same cells, genetically identical, were behaving completely differently when he simply changed the environment they were placed in. Cells grown in one petri dish became muscle, while cells from the same source turned into bone in another dish or fat in a third environment. All of this without the DNA changing at all. And here Bruce Lipton asked himself, if genetically identical cells can become different things just based on their environment, does this mean that the environment determines destiny, not just the genes alone? This simple question was enough to demolish mountains of deeply rooted beliefs in biology. It meant that genes are not a tablet upon which your fate is written, but rather mere possibilities, waiting for someone to activate or deactivate them. And so, Bruce Lipton's true journey began, a journey to discover that the mind of the cell is not in its nucleus, but in its membrane, and that your thoughts, feelings, and even your internal beliefs send signals that affect your biology and even reshape the destiny of your very cells. This might sound to you like something out of a fantasy, but in the coming pages, you will discover that science has only just begun to decode this profound truth, that you are not a victim of your genes, but rather the captain steering the ship of your body through your thoughts, your feelings, and your beliefs. And if this revolutionary revelation has caught your attention, remember that our journey together is only just beginning. Stay with us, for what's coming next will change your perspective on your entire life.
Imagine you possess a magical key, capable of turning your genes on or off as you wish. In a small lab filled with delicate instruments and glass dishes, Dr. Bruce Lipton sat for long hours watching his cells under the microscope. These cells were like silent soldiers, performing their work tirelessly. They all came from the same source, genetically identical stem cells. But what he did next, he never expected would change his life, nor shake the very foundations of biology as a whole. Bruce divided these cells into 3 separate petri dishes. Then he added to each dish a different nutrient solution, a mix of proteins, hormones, and chemical signals representing the cell's environment. And as days went by, he began to see what he never anticipated. In the first dish, the cells turned into bone tissue, in the second, into muscle tissue, and in the third, into fat cells. But how? All these cells were 100% genetically identical. No difference in the DNA whatsoever. The only thing that differed was the environment in which they were placed. And here a question lit up in Lipton's mind that shook him to his core. What is the very same cells can become something completely different just by changing their environment? What does this mean for us as humans when we are nothing but a marvelous assembly of trillions of these cells? In studies on identical twins, these twins have exactly the same genes. But how often have you seen twins who differ in health? One develops diabetes or heart disease, while the other lives healthy. The reason? It's not the genes, but the environment. Their diet, the level of stress they have, the type of relationships they have, and even their thoughts. Science explains this simply. Genes are like buttons inside a vast library, but they don't press themselves. Who presses them? The hormones secreted by your feelings and thoughts, the chemicals that come from your food and air, and even your social environment, which adjusts your neural and hormonal responses. Thus, your external and internal environment together send signals to your cells, activating certain genes and silencing others. This is the reality of what science today calls gene expression, epigenetics. How does this change your life? This chapter is not just an amazing scientific tale. It carries a revolutionary message for you personally. You are not a victim of your genes. You are not a prisoner of a genetic past you carry helplessly. You, with full awareness, can change your internal and external environment and thereby literally change how your genes behave. Choose healthy food that nourishes your cells and gives them the right signals. Reduce stress and learn to calm your mind. Surround yourself with positive relationships that support you. And even deeper, watch your thoughts, beliefs, your outlook on life, for they send continuous messages to your biology. And finally, the Petri dish for Bruce Lipton was just a small tool in a lab, but it turned into a window onto a greater truth, that we all live inside a larger Petri dish, our environment, and that we have the power to change the composition of this solution whenever we wish, thereby changing the fate of our bodies, our minds, and our lives.
Do you believe that your genes literally write your destiny? You probably thought, like most people, that your DNA is the ultimate blueprint for everything in your life, your health, your appearance, your mood, and even your diseases. But in this shocking chapter, Bruce Lipton tells us a completely different truth. It's not the genes, it's the environment, Smarty. How did this idea start? For a long time, science was dominated by a model that said genes are the maestro, managing everything, and we are merely musicians executing their orders helplessly. But the truth revealed by the latest biological research is that genes are not the conductor, but more like a collection of switches on a huge electrical panel, just waiting for someone to press them so they work or don't work. And here comes the role of the environment. The environment is not just soil, air, and food. For your cells, the environment includes all the chemical and electrical signals coming to them from the blood, which are directly influenced by your thoughts, feelings, lifestyle, stress level, and relationships. A simple example explains it all. Imagine you have hundreds of switches in your house. The genes are these switches, but they do not turn on the lights or appliances by themselves. The environment, which is your thoughts, habits, food, and even the people you spend time with, is what puts its finger on these switches and decides what to press, lighting some up and leaving others off. And why is this so important? Because many people live in terrible anxiety because of family history. My father died of cancer, so I am prone to cancer. My mother suffered from depression, so my fate is to live unhappily. This thinking is built on the illusion that genes absolutely control you. But modern science, and Bruce Lipton's work in particular, proves that genes do nothing except when they receive a signal from the environment. Even cancer genes need an environmental trigger to become active. This means you have a huge role in awakening them or letting them stay asleep. The power is back in your hands. This chapter is not just an attack on genes, but a tremendous intellectual liberation, because it restores you to your natural place. You are responsible for shaping your internal and external environment. You are the one who determines, through your lifestyle, beliefs, relationships, and even your level of self-satisfaction, which genetic switches turn on and which remain off. Reflect on this truth. You may inherit the genetic tendency, but it is you who chooses the environment that allows it to bloom or wither. And in the coming chapters, we will dive deeper into how the cell membrane works as the true mind of the cell, receiving all the signals from your environment and transforming them into biological decisions. Here, we will truly understand how your thoughts and feelings are not just fleeting psychological things, but an environment in themselves controlling your body at the deepest level.
We have been looking for the mind in the wrong place all this time. For many long years, they taught us that the mind of the cell, the command center that manages everything, is found in its nucleus, where the DNA sits like a crowned king. But Bruce Lipton, during his microscopic adventures, discovered that this belief is merely an old scientific myth. And here begins one of the most astonishing chapters of this book, the magical membrane, how the cell membrane is in fact the real mind of the cell. Let's start from the experiment that flipped the table. Bruce Lipton, in his experiments on cells, completely removed the nucleus of the cell. Instead of the cell dying immediately, as everyone expected, it continued to live, perform its functions, move and interact with its environment for weeks. Even stranger, it continued to respond to signals coming from the environment around it as if it was still thinking. But when he damaged the cell membrane, the cell immediately stopped interacting and then died. Here Lipton understood an astonishing truth. The cell membrane is not merely a casing that protects the cell, but in fact the neurological control center. It is what receives signals, analyzes them, and then sends commands into the cell to activate or deactivate certain genes. And how does this membrane work? The membrane is like a highly intelligent electrical control panel. It has sensitive receptors that detect the external environment, hormones, nutrients, even electromagnetic signals. It has transporter proteins that interact with these signals and open or close specific gates. Based on these signals, the membrane issues commands into the cell to turn on or off specific genetic programs. And thus, it became clear that the DNA in the nucleus is merely an information bank, waiting for the membrane to tell it which file to open and when. And a revolution in our understanding of the body and the mind. If you think about it a little, you'll find that this concept changes everything. If the cell membrane is the mind, it means that your external and internal environment is what runs the show. And beyond that, your entire body is a vast system of membranes, each cell possessing a small mind, influenced by what surrounds it. And here the power of your thoughts and feelings becomes evident. Because your thoughts generate feelings, and these feelings release into your blood specific chemicals, cortisol, dopamine, serotonin. These chemicals are messages that knock on your cell's doors through the membrane receptors. Your cells then decide which genes to activate, which proteins to produce, and how to behave. And thus it became clear that the DNA in the nucleus is merely an information bank, waiting for the membrane to tell it which file to open and when. And here is the conclusion of this chapter. We have discovered that DNA is not the conductor of the orchestra of your life, but merely a music library. The cell membrane is what chooses which piece gets played based on the signals it receives. And you, through the environment you choose for your thoughts, your relationships, your food, and your body, are sending the messages that control the destiny of your cells. In the coming chapters, we will dive deeper into this wondrous journey to understand how your subconscious beliefs literally seep into your body, reprogram your cells, and how you can regain control and create a new biological reality.
Imagine that you are standing firmly on nothing. This is what Bruce Lipton means when he describes the new physics. We live in a world we think is solid and stable. Our bodies, chairs, houses, and even our planets. But the shocking scientific truth that has begun to emerge with quantum physics is that this universe is not matter in the traditional sense, but energy and possibilities. From classical physics to quantum physics. For centuries, Newton was the spiritual father of our understanding of the world. The universe is a massive machine operating in interconnection, and everything is tangible material. Even in biology, this model was built on the idea that the body is gears and chemical reactions. But with the birth of quantum physics, a much more complex truth appeared. Matter is nothing but energy in a condensed state, and the atoms that make up your bodies are in fact 99.99999% empty space, meaning that everything, from your cells to your brain, is a vibrational field of energy and information. And here begins the upheaval in biology and the mind. When you look at your body or your cells from the perspective of quantum physics, you are not just seeing chemical reactions, but an energetic system. Your cells communicate with each other not only through chemical signals, hormones and neurotransmitters, but also through electromagnetic frequencies. Your heart, for example, emits a magnetic field 100 times stronger than your brain, and it affects your cells and those around you. Scientists have even discovered that DNA itself emits a faint light called biophotons, light messages between cells. What does this have to do with your mind and your feelings? Your feelings are not just a mysterious psychological state. They are also real electromagnetic frequencies. Feelings such as love and gratitude emit regular harmonious frequencies, positively affecting your cells. Whereas feelings of fear and stress create disturbances in your energy field, affecting the cell membranes and reducing the efficiency of the immune system. Thus, you see that your thoughts and feelings are not just internal experiences, but fields of energy that you broadcast, and that literally shape your biological physics. The new physics gives you a far greater responsibility, but also liberates you. If you are merely solid matter controlled by genes and chemical reactions, then you would be imprisoned inside your structure. But if you are fundamentally an energetic system, waves, frequencies, and signals, then you can influence this system through your awareness, your intentions, and your feelings. And here quantum physics intersects with the biology that Lipton presents. You are far more than just a body. You are a conscious energy field with the ability to reprogram your cells and create your health and destiny. Reflect on this depth. When you practice meditation, you're not just calming your mind, but reorganizing your energy field, thus affecting your cells even at the level of genes. When you choose gratitude instead of anger, you're adjusting the frequencies in which your cells bathe. Even your thoughts, which are measurable electrical waves, EEG, change the environment your cells live in, thus changing your gene expression. And the conclusion of this astonishing chapter. The new physics teaches us that the universe is not a solid machine, but a network of energetic possibilities. And you are not a victim of your genes nor of your body, but an exquisitely energetic being influencing your biology through your thoughts and your feelings and your awareness.
What you believe becomes your body. This phrase might sound poetic or philosophical, but it is in fact very scientific. And it is the essence of this chapter that sums up Bruce Lipton's entire journey in a single sentence. Your beliefs do not live only in your head, they live in your cells. How does this happen? Every thought or belief you embrace, whether it is, I am strong, I can overcome illness, or I am weak, sickness will defeat me, does not remain imprisoned in your mind. These thoughts turn into chemistry in your blood. Fear and anxiety secrete cortisol and adrenaline, preparing your body for emergencies, stopping growth and immunity. Love and tranquility secrete oxytocin and dopamine, enhancing healing and regeneration. And these chemicals are what knock on the doors of your cell membranes. They open specific pathways, activate certain genes and produce certain proteins, literally reshaping you from the inside. An amazing story from the clinic. Have you ever heard of the placebo effect? Just believing that a pill will heal you, even if it is a sugar pill with no active substance, makes you improve. And the opposite is also true. If you are told that you will suffer certain side effects, your body may actually begin to produce the same symptoms. This is called the nocebo. And this is not a mental trick, but a biological fact. Your belief creates chemistry, and this chemistry changes your body. Why is this both amazing and dangerous? Because most of our beliefs are unconscious, planted in us since childhood, about our health, our abilities, our limits. If you carry an unconscious mind full of fear and a sense of helplessness, you are daily programming your biology in this way. But if you start feeding your unconscious with strong, healthy beliefs, you create a body prepared for healing and flourishing. And here lies the precious message of this chapter: that you are not merely a victim of your genes or your environment. You are the primary programmer of your cells, through your deep beliefs that color the chemistry of your blood and reshape the membranes and genes of your cells. And the most wonderful part? This puts the power entirely in your hands. Through awareness, meditation, and mental training, you can reprogram your beliefs. You can choose a new belief that your body is capable of healing, that you deserve health, strength, and joy. And over time, this does not just change your mood, it literally changes the biology of your cells.
Every cell in your body lives in a state of either growth or protection, and it cannot do both at the same moment. This is not a poetic metaphor, but an astonishing biological fact revealed by Bruce Lipton in his research. And in this chapter, he connects what happens in the smallest living unit in your body, the cell, with what happens to you as a complete being with your feelings, thoughts, and experiences. How does the cell live these two contradictory states? Growth. When the cell lives in a calm, safe environment, it receives signals that make it open up, absorb nutrients, build new proteins, and reproduce. It simply thrives. Protection, but if a threat comes, toxins, a viral attack, or even a stress hormone signal in the blood, it enters a defensive state. It closes its receptors, stops growth, and directs all its energy towards survival. This means that the chemical state around the cell determines whether it will grow or stop to protect itself. And here is the astonishing similarity with your own psyche. When you live in a state of love, reassurance, safety, your body, like your cells, opens up, digests better, regulates its hormones, builds its immunity, and heals itself. But when you live in fear, anxiety, psychological pressure, your body releases cortisol and adrenaline, directing your resources to emergencies. Faster heartbeat, tense muscles, while stopping digestion, immunity, and growth. And thus, exactly like your cells, you cannot be in a state of growth and protection at the same time. It's either this or that. Why is this dangerous? Because many of us live in a chronic emergency mode without realizing it. Daily stress, anxiety about the future, stored childhood traumas all keep your body in a continuous defensive state. And this prevents you from healing, from regenerating, from thriving biologically and psychologically. And here lies the greatest lesson in this chapter. If you want your body to flourish, you must give it an environment of safety, not just through healthy food or clean air, but through thoughts and feelings that send reassurance. Because reassurance is not a luxury, but literally a biological medicine that drives your cells to grow. A practical message for you.
Surround yourself with relationships that make you feel safe. Practice deep breathing and meditation to calm your nervous system. Plant inside yourself beliefs that you are in a safe place, that you are capable, that you are deserving of health and joy. And remember, you do not need a perfect environment on the outside as much as you need a perfect environment on the inside, because that is what truly reaches your cells.
Perhaps the most important thing you pass on to your children is not your genes, but their environment and your beliefs. In this profound chapter, Bruce Lipton takes us to a very sensitive level of psychobiology, how our children's minds are formed, and why the emotional environment in the family is far more dangerous than the DNA we give them. Programming the child begins before he even sees the light. From the time he is a fetus in his mother's womb, his brain starts to receive chemical signals about the mother's psychological state. If the mother is reassured, happy, loving, the child swims in hormones that support growth. But if the mother lives in chronic fear and anxiety, the child's body adapts to a world full of dangers even before he is born. And this is not a metaphorical symbol, but a physiological fact, as hormones and neurotransmitters pass through the placenta to teach the fetus what kind of world awaits him. Then begins a more critical stage, the first 7 years. In this stage, the child's brain operates in a state similar to hypnosis. His brainwaves are mostly in the theta frequency, which makes him absorb everything around him without filtering or logic. He sees how his parents deal with anger, fear, and love. He notices their reactions toward money, health, and others. He absorbs his beliefs about what he deserves and does not deserve. Thus, the child's beliefs about himself and the world do not come from his genes, but from the family environment he swims in, from words, looks, and atmospheres that seep deeply into the programming of his subconscious mind. What does this mean for parents? It means that when you say to your child, "You are stupid," or "You are always sick," or even when he feels your constant stress and fear, you are not transmitting a temporary piece of information, but planting in his cells and brain a biological programming that will accompany him for decades. On the other hand, when you build an environment of love, reassurance, and encouragement, you do not just create a happy childhood, but you program his nervous system to settle into a growth state so his body learns to thrive instead of constantly protecting itself. This gives parenting an almost sacred dimension. Being a father or a mother does not only mean passing on your genes, but building a chemical stage, an emotional and mental environment where the child learns from the start that life is a safe place full of opportunities. The profound message of this chapter: your children are your external cells. And just as you are keen not to flood your internal cells with toxins and stress, be keen not to flood your children with fear, criticism, and emotional coldness. Instead, offer them an environment of love, safety, and trust to program their brains and their cells for health, strength, and joy. In the final chapter, Lipton will guide us to understand how we can reprogram ourselves and how we can free ourselves from the old programmings we received in our childhood to create a new biology with a new awareness.
For centuries, we placed science in one hand and the spirit in another, as if they were rivals. But the more beautiful truth, they are two wings by which man flies. This is how Bruce Lipton concludes his astonishing journey, which began with a petri dish, passed through magical membranes and cells that respond to our beliefs, reaching this final chapter that weaves all the threads into a single tapestry. Science has given us precise tools to understand the body, the brain, and the cells. Biology revealed to us how our cells are affected by hormones and neural signals. Modern physics showed us that matter is nothing but condensed energy, and that our thoughts and feelings weave into electromagnetic fields that literally affect our cells. Epigenetics showed us that our environment, including the psychological environment, is what activates or silences our genes. But all of this is incomplete without the deeper question: who chooses these thoughts, feelings, and beliefs? Who directs awareness? And here comes the role of the spirit, or the broader consciousness that exceeds our cells and genes. This consciousness that is aware of itself chooses its beliefs, changes them, decides how to look at life and death, joy and loss. This observer within us who sees thoughts without dissolving in them, who feels fear and then reassures itself, this is the essence of the spirit. Bruce Lipton says, "When I combined science and spirit, I realized that I am not merely a vessel of genes, nor just a collection of cells. Rather, I am a conscious, energetic being experiencing life in this body." And this understanding does not make you abandon science, but makes it deeper. When you know that your cells respond to your feelings, you understand why prayer, meditation, or gratitude can heal you. When you see that the membranes of your cells listen to your thoughts, worship, intention, and orientation gain a true scientific meaning. Thus, physics and chemistry reconcile with supplication, meditation, and certainty. And here you reach the most beautiful part of the book. You are much more than your body. You are a mind shaping your body moment by moment. And you are a spirit, a light of energy that cannot be measured or contained, experiencing this temporary existence through matter. What remains for you from this entire journey? Respect your science. Learn how your cells, genes, and membranes work. But at the same time, nourish your spirit, purify your intention, choose beliefs that elevate you. Because science alone shows you how the machine works, but the spirit is what decides where you go with this machine. And thus Bruce Lipton extends his hand to you in these final pages to say, do not choose between science or spirit. Embrace them both. Because you are not merely biology and you are not merely energy. You are a sacred meeting of the two, a miracle walking on earth. Our journey with the biology of belief has ended, but in truth, it has only just begun in your life. And in conclusion, after this deep journey through the book, The Biology of Belief, where we discovered how our cells listen to our beliefs, how our inner and outer environment shapes our destiny, and how science and spirit embrace each other within us, there remains one final and most important step: to make this knowledge alive in your reality. Do not let these ideas remain beautiful words in your mind. Start by observing your beliefs. Choose your mental and emotional environment carefully. Launch new intentions that reprogram yourselves, and befriend your body and soul together. Share your journey with us. We love to hear from you. What touched you in this explanation? How do you now see your relationship with your body and your beliefs? And what will you change in your life today to give your cells an environment in which they can thrive? Write us your thoughts in the comments and share the video with those you love. May this light be a reason to inspire other hearts. And always together under our motto, Audiobook Vault, where we narrate books to change your life. Keep listening. Keep growing.